So, why leave no trace is the best way to minimize impacts in the outdoors? As an ethic, 9 out of 10 people who visit the outdoors are not informed about Leave No Trace, or LNT as we will call it. With over 13 billion trips into the outdoors in the US alone every year, people are causing so much preventable damage, and the damage is adding up. Have you ever seen a super trashed area or fire scars at a campground that shouldn't have been there, or severely damaged trails? Are there other impacts? I want you to start thinking about that because we will be looking for those in your assignment later. Would you believe that Americans pay $2.9 billion to fight fires in parks and forests, 80% which are caused by campfires left unattended, the burning of debris, or negligently discarding a cigarette? Wildlife in our parks are routinely relocated and in some cases euthanized due to conflicts with humans, and human dimensions of natural resources, specifically at CSU, their forte is human-wildlife conflict management. The National Park Service cites human garbage as the origin of many of these unfortunate and unnecessary conflicts by either attracting or habituating the animal to come eat the food, and or it's causing unnatural food forage on behalf of animals that would never come around humans. The Grand Canyon National Park has $11 million in trail maintenance needs and more than $5 million in critical trail work is needed at the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. And that has to do with erosion and the way we do or don't use our trails properly. Each year, tons of petrified wood is removed illegally from Arizona's Petrified Forest National Park. Wildlife that does obtain human food can lose their fear of humans and develop attraction behaviors to trails, picnic areas, campsites, and visitors, turning wild animals into aggressive and potentially dangerous panhandlers. These animals ultimately, like I said, can be euthanized by land managers because they present risks to people. One current example we have are squirrels in the CSU campus. Please reconsider and don't feed the squirrels on campus. Invasive species are being spread nationwide due to moving firewood from one area to the next by campers. Many new infestations of non-native tree-killing insects and diseases are often first found in campgrounds. The specific insects and diseases vary by region, but some have already killed millions of trees over thousands of acres. Trash lasts for a really long time. Plastic grocery bags can last up to 20 years, aluminum cans 100 years, and fishing line up to 600 years. According to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control, the CDC, one day's pet waste can contain several billion fecal coliform bacteria, along with Giardia and eggs of roundworms, hookworms, tapeworms, heartworms. Studies have also attributed pet waste to instances of water pollution sufficient enough to exceed water quality standards, where they close beaches, harm wildlife. There's a place in northern Arizona called Slide Rock State Park. I used to be a ranger there, and every single day at Slide Rock State Park, we test the water for its E. coli due to elk and pets up the creek in the Mogollon Rim, just up from the park itself. Recovery rates for areas impacted by recreation are often very slow, with restoration to natural conditions often requiring a minimum of 10 to 30 years. That's a long time. Leave no trace is the best way to minimize these and other types of impacts, as we will see in the outdoors today. You personally can be on the forefront of changing that troubling trend. The trash parks, the damaged trails, the formidable impacts of fire, polluted waterways, and serious wildlife issues. Now, more than ever, your role is critical. And so we are imparting an ethic to you so that you have this information should you choose to share it and use it for yourself and others. When venturing in the outdoors, humans generally impact the environment in 7 broad areas according to Leave No Trace. So we have wildlife impacts, which include disturbance, altered behavior, intentional or inadvertent feeding, or reduced health and the reproduction of animals. We also have soil impacts, a loss of organic litter, soil compaction, and soil erosion. Further impacts are vegetation impacts. This includes vegetation loss, the introduction of invasive species, and tree or plant damage. We also have cultural resource impacts through theft, which happens to be a federal offense, or damage to the cultural or historical features and artifacts, such as cliff dwellings in the Southwest, for example. We also have campfire impacts, large damaging fires that can scar the land irreparably, depleting areas of dead and downed wood so that there's no wood in the area. Also, burned trash and food are a problem, including glass and cans, and there's always a wildfire risk. So other impacts still are water resource impacts, siltation and sedimentation, so too much turbidity and the water stirred up, trash, soap, and fecal waste. We also have social impacts from other visitors, which include crowding, and crowding is a sensation we all have. There's never an actual number. What might feel crowded to me may be a different number than what feels crowded to you. So the idea of crowding is a feeling that there's too many people and you feel crowded. Conflicts between various user groups. A lot of times horse packers and mountain bikers have a pretty staunch conflict. They have for years. And also a diminished outdoor experience. Maybe you're hearing people sing too loud or hear their radio or shoot their guns, and then that diminishes your outdoor experience. So let's talk about the public land use in the U.S. Consider the number of people in our public lands that they see each year. While it's great so many people spend time outside, it also means there are many opportunities to impact the outdoors. Recreation-related impacts to public lands are individual, but they are cumulative over time. It's not the one time someone cuts a switchback or tosses an apple core off the trail or out of their car. It's when these actions are repeated hundreds, thousands, even millions of times that the impact really is felt deeply. The environmental implications of our outdoor use can be staggering, especially given the popularity of outdoor recreation on federal and state lands. So if you take a look here, you can see that the state park system seems to see the highest impact, followed closely by Army Corps of Engineers, Park Service, and the Forest Service. Permitted lands tend to be Park Service lands and BLM lands, but the BLM permits tend to be whitewater rafting. So those are very few of the regulations. You have dispersed camping in the Forest Service, Army Corps of Engineer, and Fish and Wildlife tend to commingle within the BLM and the Forest Service. And then obviously the state park system is part and parcel on its own. Many of you want to get in with CPW, Colorado Parks and Wildlife. I'm sure you know that you must become a law enforcement agent in order to work for them, and that is how the state of Colorado does regulate their public land use. Here's a typical park scene. Nice park, grassy fields, a hardened parking area, easy access to the water. You can see the parking back there in the trees if you look. You might even be able to see the dumpster back there. What happens when people show up? What kinds of impacts occur? Take a minute. Take a good look at this picture and maybe write down a couple of the impacts that you see. One obvious one is that people are smashing the grass down. Maybe we're getting something in the water. Maybe people aren't throwing away their trash, just for a couple suggestions. Think what happens when even more people come to the park. The potential for recreation-related impacts can increase significantly. I don't know if you can see on the grass that there's starting to have some wear and some bare spots behind the girl on the scooter and around her, and there's a lot more trash on the ground. So I want you to think about this. I bet most of us have seen something like this in our lives.